Across many cultures, spanning back thousands of years, there have been stories of what are now known as doppelgangers. A person's exact double, sometimes physical, other times paranormal, who attempt to ruin the life of their double and are often a sign that their death is imminent. Are these beings real? A manifestation of the witness's mind? Or simply a legend? You're listening to Creep It Real, and today we tell the story of the doppelganger. No, truly. Like, where are you talking about that I...
You'll see in real life. I got them. Trust me. They're there.
Okay.
Especially
all
like
right.
these little grumpy lines.
Okay. Well, you're just going to leave me in the dust of old age.
Whatever.
I will begin to deteriorate and crumble apart soon, and you'll just be looking like a 12-year-old, so...
I just want to look like a fetus.
The fetus. That's the hot look. God damn. Okay. Hey, everybody. We're starting. Here we go. Hello. It's Creep It Real.
Creep It Real with the notes.
Okay, so, I was about to be like, well, we just really needed a break from the serious stuff, and I was like, oh.
Yes.
Wait, well, we kind of have had a couple weeks of breaks, but maybe that's just a reflection of our mental state. We need the more, silly stuff.
I'm telling you, it's this weather. It needs to be spring.
Yeah.
Very soonly.
Well, for me, I can't use that excuse because it's like 68 degrees today. So, in my deep within my brain and soul, it is a dreary 17 degrees.
It's it's not cold here. It's just been pouring rain. And then the wind picks up and it's cold.
I don't know. I kind of think that too much sun is a bummer. Like, I'd rather have rain.
No, it is.
Yeah. But I know also that with our 2-a-day walks, that's not exactly the best circumstances.
Right.
Okay.
Today we are covering doppelgangers.
Doppelgangers. It's kind of exciting.
Doppelganger.
So... let's just get into it like usual.
Okay.
The word doppelganger originates from two words in the German language, doppel meaning double and ganger meaning walker or goer.
Yeah.
And it's just a specter of a person that is seen while that person is still alive. And it's creepy to me.
It is. It's very creepy.
Yeah.
We'll get into a real life experience later.
Are you?
Yeah, I'm gonna do it, dude.
I can't believe it.
Yeah.
I was like, we both know somebody. That's how I was going to go about it. Okay. Okay, cool.
It's me.
It first appeared in the German author Jean Paul's romantic novels, Kiss. In the novel, there's a man that changes identities with a friend who is his lookalike, and the novel describes the lookalike as a doppelganger. That was the first time the word was ever introduced into existence, I suppose, because he made it up. While the term itself might have been created in the 18th century, there have been myths about spirit doubles and twin specters that go back thousands of years, so this isn't anything new.
No. I mean, this dates back to Egypt, Norse mythology, and even Finnish mythology. And they're all extremely similar, and it's, those things where it's weird because these places are like, so far away from each other, but everything's very similar. And so in Egypt, they're called a ka, and it's like a tangible spirit double, and it would possess the same memories and feelings of the living person. In Norse mythology, a vardoger is often seen doing a person's actions in advance, and it's described as almost a reverse deja vu experience. Similarly, the Finnish Etianin, sorry about that, is more of a feeling or image of future actions, but unlike clairvoyance, it's more random and it's unwelcome. Like, you don't want this to happen to you.
Oh, and then in Ireland, they have something called a fetch, which is a supernatural double same thing as a doppelganger. They are frequently considered to be bad omens that symbolize death, and they are the spitting image of a living person and are indistinguishable physically from the original. It's nearly impossible to tell them apart, but they're always found out when the original person is nowhere near the area of the sighting of the fetch at the time. And in German and English folklore, seeing your double 3 times was the harbinger of death. You could see it twice, I guess you're okay, but the third time, you're dying. So,
yeah,
there are a ton of encounters that have gone on with tons of different people, famous and not famous, throughout history of doppelgangers. Some are considered to be an evil twin, which the existence of this evil twin is unknown to the original person. And it's essentially like a carbon copy of that person, but with inverted morality, meaning that it's obviously the evil twin. And they end up wreaking havoc in the life of the original and completely bewildering the family and friends of this person, which leads to all these terrible circumstances that take place and oftentimes death of that person that saw them.
They are definitely associated with instances of illness, like you said, death, or another tragedy is followed by seeing your doppelganger. It's just interesting. They have like websites dedicated to meeting your twin, and like no, it's true. There's websites that's called like meetmytwin.com or something, where you put your picture out there and it'll face match with a person, you know, that has put their picture out there, and complete strangers have met each other and look like twins.
I've seen a few online, but I didn't know that was a whole thing.
Yeah. And well, they were saying, there was this scientist saying, you know, humans were super diverse, but we're really not. Like, our genetic makeup only has so many combinations, and at times it reaches max capacity combinations. And he was like comparing us to like squirrels and stuff, like you know, like, you know, you can't, if you put 2 squirrels together, you can't tell them apart. That's because their genetic makeup has reached a point where they don't need to look different. And I was like, well, you lost me at squirrels, but I understand saying, you know, there's only so many combinations of different, you know, like genetics and stuff like that.
Okay.
So
interesting. So I definitely had no idea people were going out there. I mean, it kind of makes me curious, but I guess we can talk about it later. So one of the earliest introductions of this type of doppelganger, this evil twin, can be found in the Zervanite branch of I thought I was going to be able to say that. The Zervanite branch of Zoroastrianism, which claims that the initial principle, called time, gave birth to twins, one called Ahura Mazda and the other called Angra Manu. I'm really sorry, everybody that knows anything about this, because I actually have like an acquaintance that has that name as his Instagram handle, Ahura Mazda. I'm really sorry, Matt, if you're listening to this. I'm really sorry that I just butchered it. I don't know. I am not quite so cool. I'm not as hip as you, I guess. But anyway.
We're not versed in the dops.
I don't think it's necessarily a doppelganger thing. Whatever. But anyway, I'll just gloss over that. So Matt, sorry about that. I believe he does listen to this podcast. But anyway, and the other was called Angra Manu, and they came to represent the concepts of good and evil. And as to be expected, good and evil came to battle. Look,
I was gonna say it's kind of similar to me how people do the yin and yang thing, because there's good and evil, and there has to be 2 of them to balance it out.
Okay, so good and evil, Ahura Mazda, symbolizing goodness, came to win the war. And interestingly enough, Zoroastrian principles allow for free will, which means that people are free at all times to choose between making the choice of good or evil. And this eventually led to the belief that Angra Manu became evil of his own choice rather than it being imposed upon him by the general order of things. And so that was kind of the first, I guess, introductions of this type of idea of an evil twin came into play back with that Zoroastrian principle. And then there was another, what the Mandinka people of the West African ethnic group of southern Mali, they also believe the world originated from twins. I don't know if you read this story at all.
No. I was busy reading about squirrels.
Okay, well, good on ya. It'll come in good later. Okay. Oh, goodness. So the god Mangala, he tried to create the world but was unsuccessful in his first attempt because he only had one seed and it was not enough. When he tried again, he used 4 sets of seeds out of which twins would be born. Not long after, the universe was impregnated and the cosmic egg, which was nestled in the cradle of the universe, was developing. The twins inside, called Pharaoh, which was the good one, and Pimba, which was the evil one, soon discovered their innate natures and began to act on them. Growing tired of being confined for so long before the actual birth, Pimba decided to break the egg to gain his own premature liberty. The rip he created symbolizes the conception of Earth, which was then created due to the treason of the evil twin. So this unfortunately resulted in the death of the good twin Pharaoh, whose father then scattered his ashes across the earth, which led to the subsequent creation of fertile lands. That was a pretty interesting little story there. I feel like I'm tripping just reading this origination story.
Like you spent too much time on YouTube late at night and you came across some weird trippy music video.
But I always find it interesting. Whoa, I'm probably screaming into that thing. I always find it interesting to hear the different stories of creation and
origins and whatnot.
So an early appearance in fictional literature of evil twins is in Beowulf, which I think we've all probably heard of at this point, which is an epic poem that was written sometime between the 8th and 11th centuries and is considered to be the oldest surviving poem in Old English. So there's not necessarily twins in this story, but the poem hints at the Freudian idea that the monsters that the protagonists keep fighting throughout the story are, in reality, reflections of their own personality, which I think we can all identify with, at least a little bit. Yeah. Another example in literature of that evil twin idea was in the Edgar Allan Poe story, William Wilson. In this story, the protagonist recounts the tale of his childhood and subsequent adulthood, where he was perpetually shadowed by his twin, who was born on the same date as him. He looked similar to him, and he had the same name as him, but he could only speak in a whisper. So one night, he steals away to the boy's room, only to be horrified by the fact that the boy's face is the exact same as his, and he freaks all out.
Freaking out.
He freaks out, leaves the school immediately, but the boy ends up following him and continues to follow him as he gets older. As that original William began to get older, he also began to just do all sorts of corrupt things. Like he was, stealing and cheating people out of money and doing all sorts of stuff like that. And the evil twin, for some reason, was trying to stop him by outing him to all these people. For some reason, I don't understand why the evil twin was the one trying to stop him from doing anything. But still, one night, William finds him and stabs him to death. And when he does this, a large mirror suddenly appears. It reflects his twin at him in the mirror, and essentially the tale of this, or the lesson here is that, not the lesson, I don't know what it would be. Either way, he ended up killing himself by killing his double. So I don't know what that was supposed to be. It was supposed to be metaphorical,
Yeah, that's what I was reading is in literature, they're often used to portray someone's innermost thoughts or who they really are on the inside and self-reflection. Like you're your own worst enemy.
We all have that part of us that we all have some good and some bad in us, I would say, some more than others probably. So in other cases, the doppelganger is the person's past or future self. It causes the original person to be seen in 2 places at once. There's a bunch of famous people that had this kind of doppelganger experience. And then the last type is just obviously a case of mistaken identity, or some of these people were just hallucinating, like they were having insomnia. And we all know what sleep deprivation does to the mind. So.
Which I think we've all seen someone where we mistaken them as a friend or have to double take and swear that, like the other day when I was at the store and I saw that kid and I was like, no, your name is Zach. And he was so afraid of me because he was all, no, it's not. I'm like, yes, it is.
It must be him.
Don't lie to me, Zach.
Lady. Okay.
So would you say that, because I did read the Christmas Carol, Scrooge McGrooge, whatever his name is.
Oh, okay.
Scrooge McGrooge. So at some point, the future Scrooge becomes a doppelganger of the current Scrooge and a ghostly apparition of himself and the evil version that he has decided to renounce. So it also, I guess, could be a
Yeah.
past self almost that you're letting
Okay.
go of, like a
Mm-hmm.
personality that you no longer
Okay.
want to be a
Yeah.
part of, I
Obviously,
guess.
most cultures associate the doppelganger with being a bad omen or something negative. It's not
Yeah.
like, oh, yay. So
My
they
doppelganger.
typically tell you stories of an evil double acting maliciously to torture, harass, and many times ruin the life of the original person. And like we said, some cultures take that a step further and say that you see your doppelganger and you're going to die. They
Right.
say, supposedly, that doppelgangers will not have a shadow or a reflection, or if there is a reflection, it's facing the wrong direction. That's so
Wouldn't that
creepy.
I don't want to think about that.
Also, it kind of fits along with your story and with Ernest's story, where you see the back of somebody's head, and like and I'll talk about it later, but it's the same thing as all the other stories that I hear on all these different shows all the time about doppelgangers. It's
Right.
like the back of their head, but also I'm sure many people that listen to this podcast have trolled around on YouTube looking for creepy videos like I have done in my life.
Yeah.
And I've definitely seen, and they're all from like Asia somewhere generally, but where they'll be like, CCTV video catches a dancer, looking in the mirror and her reflection is just staring at her and it's caught on camera or like stuff like that. So those creep the crap out of me. Creep the crap. I mean, regardless, doppelgangers have been around for quite some time, but I was just, Okay, so Sigmund Freud even tried to explain the phenomena through psychoanalysis as just another aspect of the original person's self that they were fighting or eventually coming to terms with. So, you're like, man, I'm a piece of shit. But eventually you're like, well, I'm just going to accept the fact that I have some aspects of my personality that aren't quite so wholesome.
Pleasant.
Yeah. And, or you either banish them or you accept them. But I guess he's saying they end up manifesting them to the person for some reason or other. I don't know, because you're crazy. I'm not really sure.
Well, your mind, it's like a stress when it manifests as like a physical ailment.
Yeah.
It's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm trying
or
to
like
say.
a poltergeist if they are real.
Yeah.
If that actually happens, if you are, if people get so much
worked up,
stress and tension and whatever built up in them that they actually start to create some sort of weirdo situation going on in their house. Kind of like this whole thing kind of reminds me of Skinwalker Ranch, which I will always reference because it's my beloved, my sweet, sweet
best
Skinwalker
episodes
Ranch.
ever.
Yeah. Okay, so go back to Freud, that eventually fighting or eventually coming to terms with, this is why the double is typically the opposite in behavior and mannerisms to the original person. And it's this kind of mental distinguishing between the two opposing sides that leads the doppelganger to being mistaken for the original, though it acts differently, typically to an extreme, due to the fact that it has been repressed for so long, and because of this, it needs to be acknowledged and handled properly. So essentially, it's like your bad side throwing a temper tantrum, which...
Okay. I think that's just
me
when I'm hungry.
I think this sounds a lot like us. Many times a week for various reasons, not always hunger reasons. So then, according to Freud, this will lead to the final confrontation between the two sides, which ultimately leads to victory over the negative aspects of the self, and the doppelganger can finally be killed, and its grasp on the original person will be released. But see, I'm like, do you think that's really giving people the benefit of the doubt? They're like, everybody is going to choose to just banish those negative everythings.
Yeah.
I doubt it. I mean, I don't want to. I'm not ready to accept that I can't be a salty ass bitch sometimes. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm cool with it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this brings us to the ego, or in this case, the alter ego, which is translated from Latin to mean the subconscious or the other I, and is usually perceived as separate from our normal personality. The term was introduced somewhere in the 19th century, around the same time that dissociative identity disorder became widely known, where it is thought that the original personality is not aware of the other life they are leading within their other personalities. Dude, I used to be so obsessed with dissociative identity disorder, which obviously back whenever I was obsessed with it was multiple personality disorder.
I was going to say, but why did they change the name of it?
I think
so it's more
I think maybe like to sound more clinical. I don't know. Maybe it like got a bad rap in the
And that is different than
Yes.
schizophrenia.
Schizophrenia
Okay.
does not have anything to do with necessarily with personalities. It's that you are seeing things or hearing things
Oh,
or
there's audible
yeah,
hallucinations
right.
or
Yeah.
visuals.
Whereas
Okay.
obviously dissociative identity disorder is where you have other personalities that carry on.
So the movie
Yes.
Split, he is not a
No.
schizophrenic.
Unless we'll see, because I'm like I haven't seen whatchamacallit, so I don't know. Like, yeah, Glass. I haven't seen
Glass?
Glass, so I don't know if he's imagining that he's doing some of these physical feats or if he actually is doing them.
I want to
Just say it.
say, but I'm not going to
Just
give it
say
away. No, no, he's really doing them. And
it.
there's
Yeah,
such a
he
twist
is
at the
James
end.
McAvoy.
Yeah, he is. No, okay.
A little too into it there.
Whoopsies.
Okay.
Okay, anyway.
I'm like, we're so sad right now.
Ugh, don't even look at me.
My eyes are like watering because we're the saddest. Okay, so one of the most popular examples of this is in Robert Louis Stevenson's Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, who have
Yes.
come to symbolize the never-ending struggle between good and evil in the human mind. So in this story, if you are living under a rock, the psychopathic Hyde actually manages to overpower the original persona of Dr. Jekyll completely. And because of this, the term Jekyll and Hyde has come to colloquially represent a split personality with a strong and typically diabolical alter ego.
Have you ever taken the Hyde pre-workout?
No.
It's pretty good.
No.
It was like one of the first pre-workouts that had 300
Which
milligrams
is
of
now
caffeine
like,
in it.
baby stuff. Little
Yeah.
baby stuff. What am I, an infant? Give me
Right?
700
Give
milligrams.
me more caffeine.
I'm really not being true about that. I don't consume that much caffeine.
Yes. Yeah,
No.
don't do that, please.
Yeah, I don't want to see people talking about their heart rates going through the roof and whatnot. Okay, here we go. This is getting to the fun part. So now we're going to talk about some famous accounts of doppelgangers in history.
So I have two, which were my favorite,
Yeah.
because there's a lot, honestly.
Well,
There's
we'll
a
see
lot
if we
more than
have
I
the
thought.
same.
So my first one would be Abe Lincoln, our 16th president.
Right.
Honest Abe here. So after the excitement, stress, etc. of his election, Lincoln came home and he laid out on his couch, and I just imagined his long 6'4" body just draped over a couch, and he was looking across into a bureau mirror where he saw himself full length with two faces. He tried to look at himself while standing and at a different angle, and the illusion went away. But upon laying back down, the second, more paler face was staring back at him. His wife determined was a sign of winning a second term, but also that he would not live through it. And coincidentally, he got shot in the head.
So I did not know that Abe was a big believer of the paranormal. So that is interesting. You know, I don't want to... I'm skeptical of everything, but I also am like equally ready to believe. So it's not like I'm trying to talk shit or anything, but I will say that because of that interest in the paranormal, it makes me wonder if maybe he was more prone to either flights of fancy or, you know, he was...
Well, and the thing that I will say is it did mention the excitement and stress of the election.
But I will also say that it was said that his wife came in and saw it too. So, you know, you got another corroborating witness. Yeah, that always helps to kind of lend some credibility to it. But at the same time, I'm still going to remain slightly skeptical just because. But it's cool. And also, he did die.
Yeah.
He definitely did die.
I mean... And he was honest Abe, okay?
And so, I don't mean to discredit everybody who's had paranormal experiences at all, because I totally believe you, most of you. I just personally have never had anything happen except for that cabinet door slowly close on me. But I think it was really the wind. So even though it's a windowless room, but like I told you, you can see the daylight underneath the tub. So I'm like, it's probably
daylight.
Possible.
Yeah.
With the wind. Yeah. So
just
okay,
drafty in there.
One?
So the other one I liked was Emily Sagey. I think that's how you say
Saggy.
it. Saggy Emily. She was a teacher from France in the 19th century. She was reported as being a fantastic teacher. She was adored by her peers and students. She had a really good reputation, but she had a strange history of not being able to keep jobs. So she had a pretty
Yeah.
fast turnaround round, and her most recent employer didn't understand why, but they, whatever, soon found out that the reason was because Emily's doppelganger plagued
Yeah.
her everyday life. It would hover over her. It would mimic her during her speeches and lectures to the class. It would stand by her side. Asso. It was also known to even eat on occasion,
Yeah.
which is very strange because her students actually began to interact with it, and they eventually grew really
Mm-hmm.
bold about it and tried to pass through it, which they reported it was like trying to pass
Yeah,
through
they
thick
said
fabric.
they could pass through it, but there was a texture to it, which is weird.
Yeah. So eventually, she was let go again because it just became a way too
Yeah.
big of a distraction. So I don't know. I don't know about this one. I mean, who knows how many kids are
Well, I mean, it
reliable,
did say, but of course they could all have just been like, let's all say it. But they all did corroborate with each other. So there
right?
was like, in one
Yeah,
example, it was like 13 kids that all said the same thing. They said
right.
that also that it began to kind of move away from her. So it wasn't always, it started off doing exactly what she was doing. And then as time progressed, they started seeing her more and more. And, she would be sitting in her school chair whenever the real Emily was outside with the kids. And
Yeah.
that she said that she would feel drained and lethargic after the students would see it, which, I mean, it's kind of like, I don't know if that was actually some sort of thing that was drawing energy from her in order to exist. It seems like that would drain you. I mean, stands to reason.
Right.
If that's true, who knows?
I almost thought maybe it was like a twin sister that she had that was just a jerk and just wanted to ruin her
Right.
life for some
Well,
reason.
I don't think so, unless it was died in the
Yeah.
womb or something and came back to do some stuff. Because
Yeah.
like they said, she didn't see it ever. She could never see it, but that everybody else could see it. And then they passed through it. So, I mean, who knows? I'm like, were they in a classroom with some sort of poisonous gas going on
I don't know. Maybe they were over some sort of
that
natural
was making them
natural
all
gas spring.
hallucinate the same? Were they're just seeing
Yeah.
double? Who knows? Apparently, everybody kind of accepted it until the Terrence. What is wrong with me? The parents eventually were like, "This is creepy, and we don't want our kids going to school here." So
Yeah.
then they pulled all their kids out, and she got fired again. Poor lady. But they
Poor
said she kind
Emily.
of had mind control over it. She said that she would think about, when she was thinking about something, that's when it would appear. Like if she was thinking about sitting in her chair, that's when it would appear. I don't know. Maybe she was kind of, what is that other, astral projecting herself into these
Oh,
spaces.
okay.
Who knows?
That's a whole
Yeah.
other
Right. Yeah, we're not
tangent.
going in astral projection. So here's one
No,
that
thank
I
you.
got was Percy Bysshe.
Percy
Shelley.
bitch.
I mean, I think we all know him because he's the husband of Mary Shelley, who wrote Frankenstein. One of the rare situations where the dude is known for who he's married to. But at the time, see, this is where I was like, well, but at the time he was suffering nightmares and insomnia, and he got up one night because he couldn't sleep. He went out on the terrace to get some fresh air and was brooding over his marital problems and the fact that he was in love with his wife's sister. And while this went on, all of a sudden he started to see a shadow walking towards him. And when it kind of materialized a little more, he realized it was his doppelganger. And the doppelganger then
Mhm.
asked him, "How long do you mean to be content?" and disappeared. Which I was like, what? I would have thought it would say, "How long do you mean to be discontented?" But either way,
Yeah.
he shared this encounter with his wife, and she was sure that it meant he was going to die soon. And then, apparently, the same year, he freaking died when he was sailing because a violent storm sunk his ship and his body washed up on the shore a
Oh
few days later.
no.
Also, in addition to that encounter, one of their friends said that they saw him walk past her window one morning, and it was the way that he would be walking if he was coming over to visit them, which he always did. The person never
Uh-huh.
came to the door, never actually arrived. So
Huh.
when they asked Percy Shelley about this, he said, I wasn't anywhere near your house at that time, and I was actually sailing. He apparently like was an avid sailor, but he didn't know how to swim. I was like, well, that's a brilliant idea, you idiot.
But you kind of have to know. I mean, they go
Kind of
hand in
weird.
hand, but
I don't
okay.
understand. They're like, his love of water kept his interest in sailing and he wouldn't let it go. And I'm like, wouldn't you think that if you were going to do that, you might take a week to learn how to swim beforehand? Like, I mean, I guess maybe if your boat is capsized by a violent storm that you wouldn't.
You're just like, I'm gonna die anyway.
Like, I'm going to be stranded in the middle of the ocean. I might as well just sink and not be floating around for 3 weeks waiting for somebody to come get me, which I guess probably wouldn't happen anyway. That's quite a while. Okay, I think I have maybe one more person. Yeah, or two. Okay. Catherine the Great, the most renowned and longest ruling female leader of Russia, she was a bad bitch because she whipped that place into shape. The time that she was the ruler, that's said to be the golden age of Russia. And when it came down to it, it took a lot to phase her. So it was significant that she had this experience that seemed to distress her so much. Yeah. She was laying in bed one night, and a bunch of her servants rushed to her door in a panic, saying that she was sitting in her throne when they knew she was laying in bed. So she thinks that there's some huge conspiracy going on, that they're trying to, oust her or something. And so she got up and rushed out to see who was sitting in her throne. And as they all had described, it was her. And the doppelganger sat there unfazed, which infuriated her. And she immediately ordered her guards to shoot it. And that's where the account ends. So it's kind of hard to tell if anything actually happened there, if bullets penetrated the doppelganger, or it was likely, if it really was there, it likely just kind of dissipated, I'm sure. Yeah. Again, she died shortly after seeing this doppelganger sitting in her throne, according to this story. Right. And then the last one is Queen Elizabeth I, who ruled England from 1533 to 1603. Just like Catherine, she was a bad bitch. She led the country to flourish and develop itself, and also was not a believer in the supernatural, which is why the story is so surprising. Yeah, she's no nonsense. She was skeptic as she was serious. She didn't entertain those ideas. So she supposedly walked into her chambers one day to discover that somebody was laying in her bed, which is creepy. Which is really creepy, actually. And she hooted and hollered for the person to get up, and they didn't budge. And she walked over to the bed and was shocked to discover that it was her double laying in the bed, but it was completely motionless. And she said it was like it was dressed and laid out for a funeral. Which that's scary, right? Obviously. So right. That's not ominous. So that obviously frightened her, and she knew what it meant to see your doppelganger. And soon after this, actually, a bunch of her friends actually ended up dying. She fell into a horrible depression that she never got out of and died shortly after that. So it is a bummer. It also is slightly annoying because I was trying to find out when people actually saw their doppelganger and when they actually died. Like, give me solid dates here so that I can be like, wow, that was very short. Like, are you saying shortly after is 10 years or is it 7 months? Like, what is it? Most of them, I think, were within the year, but yeah. Okay. So those are just some of the ones that stood out to me. There were a lot, and I just didn't know who these people were. Yeah, there is a ton. So in pop culture, this evil twin doppelganger typically has a physical trait that sets it apart from the original. It could be like scars, facial hair, some sort of clothing, eye patch, etc. In a movie or something, they need an easy way to be able to tell them apart. Yeah. So an interesting one I found was a Zooey Deschanel and Katy Perry. Yeah. But anyway, for a while, it was really hard to tell them apart. I saw that video of her whenever she was trying to like get into hip hop a little bit, and I saw that video of her dancing on stage, and I was like, "What is happening right now?" Katy Perry? Yes, it was super embarrassing. It was real embarrassing. I couldn't do it. What did she just host not too long ago? The Music Video Awards. She cracked so many jokes that just fell flat on the floor. I feel like it's bound to happen, but that is rough. Like, she's not probably a comedian, I think she's the doppelganger. I was going to say, because she's terrible. I'm not real, like, I don't love Zooey Deschanel either, but if you're going to pick, she's probably a sweet little thing.
Only because she was in
Oh, yeah,
Hitchhiker's
that's
Guide to the Galaxy,
okay,
and
yeah.
that is one of
I
my
used to like her a lot.
favorite
It's just one of those
movies.
things where I think she just got kind of oversaturated for me, and I was like, okay,
Yeah,
let's take a seat, Zoe Deschanel. It was the manic
yeah.
pixie dream girl thing that everybody was obsessed with for a while, where everyone was like making all these little movies where, like, what was the one? The one about Sunshine State or whatever, Garden State, had that character that was like, "Ooh, I'm so cute and precious." That's the kind of behavior. So yeah,
I, I'm a
yeah.
quirky girl. It's like, shut
I'm
up.
so weird. I'm just so weird.
You guys,
So Charlie Chaplin and Hitler were supposedly looked alike, but I think mainly that was just because of the similar mustache, and I forgot which one it was called.
yeah, that I don't. It was just the
It's
the
not cute.
style of the era,
Yeah.
you
But
know.
Charlie Chaplin actually did make a movie called The Great Dictator where he played a good barber and an evil dictator, and it was supposed to be Hitler. And apparently, he watched one of Hitler's propaganda films, and he said he just laughed the whole time through. So he like decided he needed to make a movie to make fun of him, and apparently Hitler hated his guts because of it,
Ugh,
which I'm sure he did because
yeah,
he's like a little
he's a
whiny
whiny. He's a
bitch.
whiny.
Yeah.
He is.
Well, and that's putting it, yeah, real
Gosh.
nice, actually. He was a piece of garbage. So then in Star
Yep.
Trek, there's the good Spock and the evil Spock from the Mirror universe. And the evil Spock has a goatee, I think. I don't personally watch Star Trek, but I'm sure there are many of you out there that do.
I don't. I tried watching a 1993 film starring Drew Barrymore about a doppelganger, her doppelganger, and it was so
Was it?
awful and hard to follow, I had
Okay,
to turn it
well.
off. It was dumb. Drew Barrymore,
We're not
what
going to
were
hold
you
it against
doing?
you. You. It's shy. Uh,
Okay,
I saw
I
that actually on
I just
Shudder, I
couldn't.
think, and I was like, yeah. But one
Dumb.
thing that I am excited for is Jordan Peele's new movie that's coming out about doppelgangers. I know, I'm so
Oh,
excited. Yeah.
Us, March
Yay.
22nd, got my
I'm pretty excited
calendar
about that.
marked.
Okay, so let's go into personal experiences
Okay,
that we
okay,
can
okay,
talk
okay.
about.
Let me take a deep
Okay.
breath.
Okay.
So I was about 14, 15, and I was home alone. And we were living at my mom's long-term boyfriend's house. And the way the house was built, it was a two-story. So you'd walk in the front door, and there was a little landing, and you could go up the stairs to the left, or you could go
Uh-huh.
down the stairs to the right. So there was obviously a wall
Uh-huh.
separating the staircases. So you could look over the top staircase down
Okay.
to the bottom staircase. And I don't know what I was doing, derping around
Okay.
in the kitchen or something probably. And I heard my mom call my
What?
name.
Okay, I forgot that part.
And I was
Sorry.
like,
I totally
that's
forgot that.
weird.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was like, that's weird. I thought I was home alone. So like, what? And she didn't answer. And I was like, and
Yeah.
it sounded like it was
Mm-hmm.
coming from downstairs because it was kind of echoey. So I was like, okay. So I just walked over and I, walked down a couple steps and I looked over the wall, whatever, down to the second staircase. And I saw her. I didn't see her face, but it was like she quickly turned away from me and walked around the
Mm-hmm.
corner. And I could see because my mom had hair down to like her
Yeah.
butt back then. And I could see it like her dark brown hair kind of wisp away around the corner after her. And I was like, Mom, no answer. So I go downstairs and I'm like, hello. And I checked all the rooms and nobody was
Uh-huh.
there. And I was just like, all right then.
So, are you done? Okay, so
Yeah.
when did you talk to your mom after that? Were you like, hey, were you here?
I think I told
Or
her
did she like suddenly come home and was like, oh, I'm
a
here. I've been
while.
gone all day.
No, that's right, because after like an hour or so, she had gotten back and she
Yeah.
had went to the
So
grocery
she was at the
store.
grocery.
So I was just like, okay. I think I had told her about it after a while, and she was just
Yeah.
kind of really confused. And I mean, it was definitely creepy. And I don't want to say it was a ghost
Yeah.
because
Well, right.
it looked like my
So,
mom,
yeah. And
So
obviously it wasn't like a harbinger. It wasn't, yeah, of
of my
her
death.
death, not yours. Yeah.
Her death.
So maybe it
Yeah.
was excuse me, a past or future instance. Like maybe that happened again, and it actually happened, but you just got that glimpse of it, maybe.
Yeah. Maybe she was astroplaning.
Astroplaning? What's that exactly? I'm not sure what that
Yeah.
is.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Okay, and then in addition to your story, I don't have one because I never have any good stories. So woe is me. Not that I'm asking for it, but Ernest from Strange Talk, his story that he sent in on the our listeners' stories episode, he had a story of seeing his sister jump from her bedroom doorway through to his bedroom doorway, but he just saw, if I'm not mistaken, I should have read it and I was meant to, but I didn't. But if I'm not mistaken, she jumped from her bedroom to his bedroom doorway, and he only saw the back of her head. And when he went in, and he was mad about her going in his room, so he immediately followed it, and there was nobody there.
Yeah, I was irritated.
Right.
So, and you had mentioned that there's like similar stories where the doppelganger won't.
Yeah. And so I listened to Jim Harold's Campfire, which is another podcast where people call in and tell their story, their personal experiences, and they range from serious like ghost stuff to aliens to this kind of stuff, the doppelgangers, but just all sorts of unexplainable activity that goes on. And, some of the people are a little wackadoo, and you can just tell. And some of them are just telling a story to tell a story. Like, some of them are clearly lying, but some of them are extremely genuine, and there are doppelganger stories on every single. And there's another one. Oh, Spooked. That podcast I love called Spooked. I think it's called, what is it? Oh, it doesn't matter. It's called Spooked, and it's, again, real people telling their stories. Anyway, there's always doppelganger stories in the mix, and it's always, the ones that I've heard, it's always seeing somebody pass by, you see the back of them, and then they're not there. Or then 2 seconds later they'll call and say, hey, like, I need to get something from you. And they're like, what? I just saw you go by my room. And they're like, I haven't been home in 3 hours. So that definitely, your story or his story both sound extremely similar to some others that I've heard in my life. And that is, like, for some reason, one of the creepiest cryptidy kind of things. Like, it's just super creepy to me. I don't know why. The back of the head thing just creeps me out so bad.
No, it is. Like, why won't you face me? Is it because your face is
you
gross?
don't have a face, or you're... So... Obviously, in general, doppelgangers tend to be a bad omen, where destructive circumstances take place shortly after the sighting, and even death, as we have seen if some of these stories are to be believed. There's definitely some instances where people are suffering insomnia and or hallucinations, like we said. So that explains some of them, but I don't think you can say that to explain all of them away. And obviously, like all paranormal activity, all paranormal activity, there isn't a cut and dry way to explain these sightings or even a set of rules across the board that they seem to follow. It's always just kind of, like we said, a lot of them have similar characteristics, but then there are others that have completely different. To provide a pragmatic explanation, psychologists have identified neurological conditions like hodoscopy. I know there are people out there that get annoyed when they're like, why didn't you look that word up? I've seen people leave reviews about that. Like, you should have taken the time to look up the word. I'm like, do you know how many words I would be trying to retain in my head? Leave me alone. In which one hallucinates their own image at a distance. And this may explain many cases in which the original was the only one to see their double. And sightings by multiple witnesses still lend themselves to supernatural occurrences, however. As this one doctor observes, the doppelganger is often said to appear as one sleeps or falls ill. And this has led to the belief that when our bodies can no longer hold on so tightly, our spirits may be free to wander. Sure. Maybe. Maybe not. So it also could just be like an alien. Or...
Yeah. That, you know what?
Right, I know you would. It also, I'm going to go back or fall on my go-to, which is interdimensional beings. That's what I say everything is. I'm like, that's just your mom from 3 months ago
doing her normal stuff.
imprinted in the fabric of our dimension and walking down the hallway, you know. But you know, who knows? Maybe
Well,
not.
that one thing you were telling me that it really sticks with me, how if you see a book fall off the shelf and
Oh yeah.
people are like, "Oh, it's a ghost," but really it's just a weird dimensional hiccup,
Right.
and that's you trying to get a book off a shelf.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that fascinates
Well,
me. I'm just
and just so
really,
oh, go.
oh, I can't wait till we delve
Right.
into
Okay, so
that.
just to not take credit for that, that was the movie Interstellar that happened with your
Oh.
favorite Matthew McConaughey, who actually I do love Matthew McConaughey.
Mm.
Like I don't if you go watch True Detective, I don't know how you cannot like him. You haven't watched it, that's why. But anyway, but yeah, that movie really, I don't know, it was good, but more than that, it really blew my mind as far as me thinking about what time is, you know? Like that is where I was like, what in the fuck
I,
is going on here?
I hate thinking about that because it just trips
Well,
me
yeah,
out,
that's a very
you
like,
know?
whoa, man. Like I've said it every time we talk about it, but like, you know, like that could be the time is just all overlapping and like what is time?
Yeah.
What does that mean that even death is? And you know, okay, we don't need to go into that right now, but it, you know, that's a topic for like some months of like that's gonna be a real
Just,
hardcore nerd
ugh,
episode that we do like
yeah.
but you know what okay, so we're done with doppelgangers. Hopefully you never see one.
Yeah, super interesting,
Yeah,
creepy, but,
but fun also. But the
yes.
what was I gonna say? Oh, I was gonna say that this week somebody, where did they do that? Somebody left us or wrote made a post about us. I think it was Anastasia, the artist she made
Oh,
that
yeah.
really
Oh,
cool. Yes, thank you so
gorgeous.
much for making that really cool rendition of our logo. I was like, I would do something with it. I don't know what. I'm not sure, but something.
Hanging on
Hang it
my
on my
wall.
wall. It's like a very I don't know, how would you describe it?
Like,
But yeah, it's like a
vintage,
vintage rendition. Yeah,
Victorian
it's
almost.
really cool. Um,
Yeah.
and so I became a patron of hers, and so that's why why she did that. But she's also been listening, and so she had made a post about us that was super super sweet, very kind. And somebody commented on there, I believe, that they listened and they were so excited to listen to the Montauk episodes because we talked about scientific stuff. And I was like, listen to that. Like, do, do,
Yeah.
do, do, do. I was like, oh, I was like giddy. Like, okay, so maybe, you know, there are other people out there like us. Like I watched X-Files and stuff when I was a kid, and like maybe there are other people out there that do like that kind of, because I remember when we were recording that, I was like, these people are gonna turn this off right now.
Yeah.
But maybe
It's just very
yeah.
dry,
But you
but
know,
if you're into
yeah,
it,
I
you're
mean
into
maybe
it.
anyway, so maybe a time dissection of that kind of thing. Well, oh, that's kind of more string theory is what I think you're talking about, like what we would cover. It's because time is pretty
Yeah.
broad, or like time. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah, string theory. Okay. Well, I am excited to do that one, but that is going to be like a little bit of a brain situation. A real brain
True that.
situation. Okay, well, happy birthday, my friend.
Oh, Lord, I'm 25. That's fantastic.
Ooh, so young.
JK.
Hey, let's
31.
embrace it. Let's embrace it.
Embrace it.
Yeah, we're 30-year-old plus, 30-plus-year-old
30
babes,
plus.
okay?
I want my
We're
senior discount.
senior discount. Your senior discount is once you get, I don't know what I'm saying. Just keep squatting and stop talking about being a senior. Okay.
Okay.
Anyway, even though I know you need to go, but I like last night I was making dinner sitting there trying to think about how old of a child I could have right now. That's what I was doing. I was like, well, technically speaking, I could have a 22-year-old child if I had a child at 12. And then I was like, that's disturbing.
You know what's a trip to
What?
think about is I am at the age my mother was at
I know.
when,
You
I
brought into
was,
this world.
no, she was like 20 when she
Oh,
had me.
shit.
So let's see. I mean, around the age
So you were 11. You have an
she,
11.
yeah,
Well, you kind of do have an 11-year-old. Almost. Yeah.
I do. And it's just strange because at that time is when I really started remembering my mother and having, you know, this
Right.
relationship with her. And it's just weird to
Yeah.
think about.
Like you're that age.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
You're like,
Yeah,
whoa, man.
I know.
It's blowing my mind right
Dude.
now. But yeah, it is very it's like it's a little bit disconcerting to be like, okay, it's
It is.
if I had a child at 12, like David said earlier, if I had a child at 12, there's bigger issues there. But I
Yeah.
technically like in a like kind of more normal situation, in a more normal situation, I could technically have gotten pregnant at 17, and I could have a 17-year-old child right now. Someone please
Ugh,
save me. Or like 16.
that is, it
Ew.
is.
Sorry to anybody that does. I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to be like negative. It's just for my own. I'm like, what's happening? What happened?
Yeah.
I feel like I'm still so young.
Well, and I do feel behind. Not that I'm like, oh God, I gotta go make a
No, I
baby right
know.
now. But
Right.
so many people I grew up with and graduated with are working on like their third kid, and I'm
Yeah.
glad it's for you, but
Yeah. To each
no, no,
our
no.
own paths in life. This is,
Yeah,
yeah.
I got three
Yes.
dogs instead, so
I have a dog.
there you go.
Okay.
Anyway,
Well, thanks for listening,
well,
everybody. It's been a really uplifting few weeks as far as the pod is concerned. It's been, we had our
yeah,
giveaway, and that was Amy. Congrats on winning that bad boy. And
get your
yes,
stuff
and
out very soon.
it really drove home to us how much there or how many people out there really do listen
Hmm.
and like just love us, and it was overwhelming. If you didn't attend our live video the other night, we had screw you. And secondly, no, but we were just saying that when we were reading people's comments about us and stuff, that Shy,
Yeah,
of course, got a bit emotional, and I would have about
what's
2 weeks
new?
later. If it were only 2 weeks later, I would have gotten emotional. Yeah, anyway, so I would have, but I'm a cold-hearted bitch. I'm not really. I really am not. I am a sweet person, but it depends. It just depends on who you are, I
You
think. So,
are.
anyway, if you want to contact us about anything, you can email us at creepitrealpod@gmail.com. That is our email. If you want to talk to us on Instagram, it's creepitrealpod. Same thing on Twitter, which I sort of do, try to do it. And, Facebook, you can just look for us. And we have our special little group you can join and post weird memes and stuff and have conversations that maybe you don't want all the people you know to listen about you going on and on about Ted Bundy documentaries and stuff. So, yeah. So anyway, have it real. Creep it real. Bye.
Bye, guys.